But there was an article written in the New York Post about millennials visiting Disney World because some woman on Facebook, some rant went viral where she was angry that there was a lot of millennials walking around Disney World preventing her and her child from getting a pretzel, or going on the rides or whatever. And I don't know her. I'm not necessarily in her camp. Why? Number one, why are you getting a pretzel in Disney World? Is that why you went? Is that why your fat child went to Disney World? I'm pretty sure you could have satiated him at a rest stop if that was the big issue. If he just needed a carb, maybe you didn't need to spend all that money to go to the theme park. But she was angry that her son, whose blood sugar levels were rapidly dropping in the park, she could not procure a pretzel for her child. So she lashed out at who she felt was the culprit, childless millennials who were in the park. Now, it's a tough thing here because I have friends that really love Disney World. And that counts as a mark against them when I think of them. Nobody's perfect. I have a lot of marks against me. When people think of me as a friend, there's a lot of things that go in my negative column. What will he bring up? What will he feel is appropriate to discuss at a barbecue? What rage-filled diatribe will he go into without anyone even inviting that kind of energy? He will just show up and bring it. Now, I understand that, but to me, Disney World, I went twice. I went when I was a child. My parents went, and this is true, to try to save their marriage. This is a fact. My parents, my boomer parents, went to Disney World to try to save what was a failing marriage. And everybody knew that. At that point, they were sleeping in separate rooms. My mother had taken in this girl, Dorothy, who was like my babysitter. And Dorothy came from a real crack family. And my mother said, come to our home, which is also relatively unhappy. But none of us are on crack. Because my mother was actually like a giving person. She was a good person. She helped the girl get into college and everything like that. And then, of course, as soon as the girl got into college and, did everything, she left. She never spoke to us again. Whatever it is, what it is. But we all went down to Disney World. And me, my father, my mother, and Dorothy, this kind of broad-shouldered, brutish woman that my mother, I'm trying to remember what she looked like. Some people found her attractive. She had a masculine energy, the woman. She did. Women got to watch out a lot of women that are swimmers, their shoulders get very aggressive, And you notice that if you watch the Olympics and you see females that are swimmers, their shoulders are very, and that was Dorothy's deal. She's pretty, but, built. So my father, my mother, and Dorothy and myself went to Disney World. This is maybe 1993, 4. I'm 7 or 8 years old. We go to Disney World. We stay in the Grand Floridian, which is, I believe, still the top hotel. It's still the top hotel. First of all, I will say this about Disney World. If you're not staying on the property, guys, if you're not even staying on the property, I mean, what kind of experience? And everywhere in Disney World takes 3.5 hours to get to, even if you're staying on the property. You got to take a monorail, a boat, a train. And my mother and father hated each other with a passion. Okay. So my mother had insisted that we all take naps in the middle of the day, which is actually not a bad idea. You go to Disney World in the morning, you go to the character breakfast, which my mother and father, I swear to God, fought so bitterly at the character breakfast that none of the characters would come near the table. They were all orbiting around the table. None of them wanted to come near the table because my mother and father were fighting about money. That's why all marriages fail for the most part, is because you have too little money or you have too much money. And if you have too much money, you go, why am I fucking you? What you need in a marriage is just enough money to keep people doing it. But you need a little bit of fear. You need a little bit of the idea of like, can we afford this divorce? What happens? What happens on the other side of this? If everyone is too comfortable, one of my friends is a divorce lawyer in Beverly Hills. Too much comfort breeds just people going, you know what? I don't know. I don't know anymore. You don't really excite me. But just enough money, just enough, keeps people like my parents in a loveless marriage for 20 years and ruins their children's life. So that's what you want. You want just enough money to keep things going, you know? Divorce is such a big deal, and most people don't realize it. A friend of mine said recently, and he said this, and this is aggressive, and you know, people are going to get angry. But when you are a child of divorce, it really extinguishes the hope that you're really ever going to have a normal, and I don't want to use the word normal, but a conventional life. Like I think the way that he worded it is you're just kind of like, you're fucked. You're damaged. Now, because everything is so bad now, divorce barely registers as something that damages people because everything's like so bad. Kids are in cages. Everybody's on heroin. Kids are in foster care. They're being farmed out. CPS is stealing kids and selling them to senators. So a divorce is like good. That's like the good option. Oh, your parents just got divorced. That's like great. That's like phenomenal. But the reality is it's not. It's really not. Okay? Mommy and daddy going, you know what? We're not into this anymore. And we're barely into you. Because that's what a divorce is at the end of the day. It's them going, we're so not into each other that you are no longer even uniting us. For a few years, you actually were the drive. Because that's also why people get divorced, because they don't have kids. You need to have a child if you're married. Because otherwise, what are you doing? It's stupid. Marriage without children is kind of dumb unless you were like if you're running like an empire and your days are full of meetings and whatever it is and you know, going on, you know, retreats and whatever it is that keeps you and that person really. But otherwise, it's a child. And if it's not a child, you're heading towards the end. It's just a matter of time. I had a friend recently, not really a friend. I call everyone a friend on the show. I have 3 friends, but everyone's a friend. No one's a friend, to be honest with you. You know, everybody's getting canceled. We're going to go through that later in the program. And I want you to start canceling people from your inner circle. I've recently telling you, cancel your family. You should have done that already. Cancel your extended family and your acquaintances. Now I want you to start canceling your close friends that you've known for a very long time. And we'll get into why later. But the reality is divorce is a thing. People act like it's not a thing. People tend to think it like doesn't matter. But it's traumatizing, especially if it goes on for a while. Like my parents' divorce went on for 2 years because neither one of them could afford to get lawyers. So they had a mediator. And a mediator just comes to your house and your parents just argue at a dining room table over a collection of Beanie Babies or whatever the fuck they had. These fucking boomers had nothing. They had a few lamps. Aunt Gussie's table. I remember my mother said that. She goes, well, who's going to get Aunt Gussie's table? And I'm like, hi, I'm 13 and I'm about to embark on a decade of drug use. Could one of you maybe check in, perhaps, while we're dividing up a table that has a market value of, at best, $75? I'm a living organism that you both have created. So could potentially maybe you find the time to check in on how I'm doing while you divide up all the winnings of 20 years of having no college education and no financial planning, okay? And believing you could retire by collecting Hess trucks and then putting them in a room. And my father, who I love, who came to my show last night in New York, but my dad being a musician and, his most prized possessions were his guitars,